Hey guys, this is Shay Jose coming back at you with another tutorial. This time we'll be looking at doing an organic house in the style of All Day I Dream, Lee Burridge, Mass Digital, and to an extent Nick Warren. So for now I'll just give you a little bit of a preview. This is actually a bootleg remix or rework that I did of a very famous trance song called Need to Feel Love by Reflect. So you'll be able to grab this project from the link below, especially if you're on my Patreon program. But you can follow this along. I mean, you can apply this to pretty much any DAW. But without further ado, let me give you a little introduction of how this rework sounds, and then we'll do a track breakdown. Alright, so I've just stopped it there before the vocals because I don't want to get a copyright strike. So you'll be able to, like I said before, you'll be able to download this from the description below. Just on another note, this rework has been supported by the likes of Nick Warren, Lane 8, Sultan and Shepherd, and a bunch of other people. So it's starting to get some traction, which is great. And comment below if you want me to make some more of this style of videos. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing I'll say is, with this style of music, the majority of the complexity is really around the samples used for the drums, the groove that you put in the drums, more than the actual leads and other components within the track. So you really need to spend a lot of time finding a groove that's going to work well and complement the song that you are writing, because you will find that a lot of the times the music that comes out of labels like All Day I Dream is very minimal in its use of synthesizers and pianos. They really are just kind of the icing on the cake, but really it's the groove that actually drives these sort of songs. So to get started, let's have a look at the low-end bass, the low-end bus channel. So what I tend to do is usually group my low-end together, and I have my bass and my kick. Now, I've frozen some of the tracks just to save on CPU, but I'll unfreeze them and then we can go through each one of these components. So we've got a basic kick pattern. This is actually a layered kick. As you can see there, and I've covered this before in some of my other tutorials, I tend to bounce my kicks in audio because I actually like to see where the waveform is actually starting and finishing. So for this, I actually have a top kick, and I like the sub of another kick that I had in there. So what I did is I just cut out the initial attack and kind of left the body off the kick to really emphasize the way that that kick was sounding. So I'll give you an example here. It's quite punchy because there is a lot of percussion going through in this track. I found that I needed a kick that had a little bit more body to be able to kind of cut through that mix. If we move further down into the bass, let me just unfreeze this rack. So we have a very simple pattern going here with the bass line. Let me grab a bar so you can listen to it. So I hope you have headphones on, otherwise you won't be able to hear that. But as you can see here from here, it's just a very simple serum patch. Just initialized, nothing too great. It's like a Juno wavetable there with a sub. I've actually rolled off a lot of the higher range frequencies on this sub, because what happens with this particular style, and you've probably seen this covered in other tutorials, the sub doesn't really have a lot of harmonics in the upper frequency range. That's really taken up in the mid to low mid areas by the percussion. So you kind of have to complement where your sub is going to sit in relation to the overall mix. The other thing to note here is to actually give space to this particular track in the way the low end sits. We're not actually playing the bass in every single hit. So we've got the first bar here where we have the kick, and then in between in between kick one, or the first part of the kick, and then the second kick coming in, we've got the bass hitting. And as you can see here, this is the probably the only overlapping section in the bass pattern. We've done some creative EQing, remove some of the unwanted frequencies in there, a little bit of saturation to beef it up, and we're running Kickstart now. I love this plugin. This is my go-to plugin pretty much now on every single production. It's basically the same as the one that I think the Cable Guys did. It's a lot easier to use. You don't need to have a MIDI trigger track to make it run smoothly. So just basically side chains to the kick by audio. We've got a utility. We're basically monoing everything on 200 Hertz. Keep that low end nice and tight. This is really my go-to for gluing, kind of gluing components together. I love this compressor, the 2500. So I tend to use this quite a lot. So we play this low end together so you can hear what it sounds like. It sounds like this. So it sounds really cool. I was experimenting with a clipper and a limiter. Probably seen in some of my other tutorials, I tend to actually squash the low end quite a bit. So you want to maintain that low end very stable to keep the groove going. So I applied some clipper on this, which kind of gives it that little bit of a fuzz that you can hear in the sound. I was going to run an L2 on it over the top, but it wasn't needed. The clipper was doing enough of a job to keep it nice and stable. And then finally, we are just dipping around 117 Hertz, which is where the kick, some of the frequencies of the kick were coming through, and there's kind of unwanted frequencies coming in through there. And we're just raising some of the upper harmonics, so you can hear it in some of the lower bass style headphones, I guess. So they don't translate the basses well enough. Finally, in the bus channel, we're doing the Pull Tech EQ trick. Now, if you don't know how this runs, it's pretty cool. You'll probably this track had a lot of bass already, so I wasn't smashing the sound on it, but you will usually put about anywhere between 2 to 5 notches of gain in here, and then you attenuate about the same. And what it does is it actually shelves the low end in such a way where your low end kind of comes up further, but it then trims away some of those muddy frequencies a little bit higher up around the 500 Hertz range. So it's a really, really nice way to actually give your low end some glue and kind of emphasize the nice harmonics in there. And finally, we're just running another glue compressor to kind of glue everything together. And altogether, like I said before, we've got a really, really nice, stable low end that actually drives the track. So that's enough about the low end. Let's move on. We've got a basic drone here, nothing too special. It's just a diva patch with some shimmer, EQ'd out and running through Kickstart, so I won't cover that too much. We've got a background plug, which I think I bounced to audio just to save on CPU. And it's just a little bit of an atmospheric feel to it, just to give it some drive. We got a mallet, which is a loop that I think I got from PML from memory. And this kind of helps in the second drop. It kind of just changes things up a bit. Nothing too crazy, just a bit of EQ, saturated drum, bass, and kickstart. As you can see, there's very minimal processing on a lot of these channels. A lot of it is about the sound selection, really, to kind of get what you want. Now, we've got some piano here, which basically is the main riff off the track. From memory, I have done this, just with a stock Ableton piano. It's just EQ'd in different ways. We've got a couple of layers in there. Electric piano layered with a dark piano, some delay, saturation, EQ'd to basically give it a nice feel. So altogether, it sounds like this. So what happened in the original piano that I was using, if I was just used the normal piano, it sounded too tingy, very metallic-y. And when I listened back to the original track, and I think the remix that was done by, I think he was, what was the name? By Soha, I think he is the one that did it. It had more of an electric piano laid under it, so I tried to recreate that. So if you listen to just this normal piano layer, I mean, it sounds okay, but I think the magic really comes from being able to run this electric piano layer as well. So we play it from here. And it's got that really nice haunting feel, kind of LFO wobble effect, I guess you could say. If I have a look at this one, I don't think I've actually even processed this much. No, not really. It's just the stock plugin, really, with some EQ and a little bit of sidechain, which is not actually doing anything there. But together they sound really nice. So listen again. As you can see, we're not actually doing any EQing on the bus. So that's the piano. So that's a cool way to actually get the Ableton stock piano to sound well, because they usually sound like absolute garbage. And especially if you don't want to spend on contact instruments, it's a good way to actually get around some of these issues. The lead. Okay, so this was basically trying to recreate the riff of the original track. So if you don't know what it sounds like this. So I kind of wanted it to sound like the original without sounding like a trance track. So what I ended up doing was actually grabbing this serum patch, which is just an initialized serum patch, pretty easy. Basic shapes. We've got a saw wave there, and this is a saw rounded shape. Pretty simple. The processing, we've just removed some of the unwanted frequencies. We've put some chorus assemble there to make it a little bit more stereo. A little bit of a delay. The hybrid reverb, which gives it a really nice feel. And what else? Oh, the magic switch. This is a great little plugin. It's I'll let you hear it with and without it. So this will be without it. And with it, it just adds a little bit more texture to the sound. And it's great. I tend to use it every now and then. We're rolling some of the low end in there, a little bit more EQ. We have some harsh frequencies. As you can see there, I've pulled a lot of them down. And we are running just a multi-band afterwards, just to kind of deep even further anything that kind of pops up, and just the baby audio. So if you know what baby audio is, it's like the cheaper version of Soothe. I do have Soothe, but it chews the crap out of the CPU on my crappy old computer, so I need to upgrade to the M1 very soon. Anyway, so that is the lead. Move further down, the other big part of this track is the drums. So this is really where the magic kind of happens. So listen them all together, they kind of sound like this. So as you can hear there, it's quite a bit of reverb to kind of feel the sound and the space in between the hits. Now, I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of these loops, and I've actually bounced a lot of them out, which then makes it a lot easier for me to actually put in here. So the trick was really to find loops that kind of worked, build loops that kind of worked, and then kind of bounce them all into audio. So if I was to play this alone with the kick and bass, you will hear what the groove sounds like together. So the other thing about the groove on the organic house style of music is not just having these kind of loops and shakers and all that, but it's about having the ear candy. A lot of the ear candy is actually done with other percussion hits. So you can see here, we've got random hits all over the place, but they really add to the texture of how the loop is sounding. So if we were to grab a busier part of the track around here, which is actually the outro, I'll let you hear it, how it sounds without the fills and how it sounds with the fills. So let's put the kick and the bass in, let's put the drums in, but we'll take out the fills, and you tell me if you think it sounds better with or without. So that's all without any of the fill items in there, the percussion fills. Now listen to it with, it gives it so much more character, keeps the listener engaged, and it's just another level of ear candy really in this type of track. So yeah, that sounds really cool. So really, this is where you would spend the most amount of time, is actually getting your drums to sit just right. Besides this, we've got this organ sample. Oh, sorry, this is an organic hi-hat sample that I've been running, which is, I think it just sounds really nice with the overall track. Nothing too crazy, a little bit of auto pan. We've widened the noise a little bit in some of the 1.1 kilohertz range. And then finally some more hi-hats. So that is kind of the drums component. Now, the bus channel, we're basically, once again, we are running the Waves 2500 compressor in there, just slight compression to kind of glue it all together. Because I am running the hi-hats in there as well, I have actually used fresh air to bring up some of those frequencies up a little bit. We've put in some Saturn 2, so this is some saturation. This is a great, I love this preset, Magic Master BM. It's great. It's really nice to actually give that extra shine, especially on your percussion. EQing a little bit out of there and just ducking everything under 271 to the kick. Okay, let's move on. The pads. So this is another massive component of the track, of the original one as well. So took me a little bit of time to work out the chords because I don't read music originally, so I kind of figure everything out by ear. But they sound like this. So we've got the Labs, which is a free instrument. I think on this one I just used the normal string cello. I went on Freezer. You can have a look at it in the project. We're running some LFO onto it. The reason why we're running the LFO on this is from memory. If I look at the LFO, it will allow me to do it. Maybe I do have to on Freezer. Give me a sec. Okay, if I just play this one by itself. Okay, so what we're doing is just basically running an LFO through it. So it kind of gives it that effect of playing a cello string. You will find that the velocity tends to change quite a bit when you're playing a string instrument like a cello, guitar, violin, etc. So I was trying to mimic that with the Labs. This is just a augmented strings patch that I did. Actually bounced into audio because it was just running my computer to the ground with the CPU usage. So it sounds really nice. We're just rolling off some of the EQ down there. Then we've got the same thing, augmented strings. So it's just a lot of layers of strings to make it sound really full, and a contact instrument at the end at the very top. So all together they sound like this once again. if you hear that, that's pretty much 90% of the track already done there. In that small, in those small buses that I've just said. I think it's only 1, 2, 3, 4 buses that I've chosen. Now, we've got some electric piano that I put here, just to give it a little bit more ear candy throughout. Some auto pan, chorus assembler again, a little bit of overdrive, more delay, some reverb, and EQ to taste. We've got this organ here as well, which is that in another layer, playing the same chords as the piano. So let me adjust that. It's playing the same chords as the violins. And we've got some other strings here which are left on their own. This is a contact instrument. Another violin there. We're putting everything to mono on the 173, gluing it a little bit, and we're not actually we're just using kind of the lower frequency range of this instrument. So that is pretty much the track, guys. Like I said, the main part that you will spend a lot of the times with is really your drum programming, the way your bass and kick interact. If you can get all those done very well and complementing each other with their own pockets, so they come through clearly, the rest of it is very easy to get right. So what I've done is I've actually removed my mastering chain because I use a lot of paid plugins, and I've just added some of the default, where possible at least, some of the default Ableton VSTs or plugins in here that you can use for mastering. So yeah, like I said, this will be available for my patrons to download. I just wanted to wait a little bit until the track was out for at least a month and being picked up by some of the majors. What I might do is I might just include the radio version rather than the whole extended, and I will remove the vocals because I don't own the rights to it. So you can grab these vocals, you can find them, they are around, that's how I found them. And you will be able to download this project to use. Please don't use the exact same groove that I've done. Change it around, but you know, it should be good enough for at least to use as a basis for you to kind of change around and kind of make it your own. Alright guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive more videos like this in the future. Also, don't forget to follow me on Spotify at Shay Jose. And the link to my Patreon will be below. If you want to join, I cover a lot of these tutorials. I try to give out at least once a month a free project that you can use to dissect and use some components into your own productions. And also free patches. So if you want to support me, great. If not, happy for you just to learn of these videos. And we also have a Discord server, so it'll be great if you can join. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.